Welcome to the Desert Sanctuary with Carl and Laura Forehand.
Often when we have doubts about religion or simply want to ask questions, it can feel like we are wandering out into the desert.
We would like to invite you to join our sanctuary, the Desert Sanctuary.
We've tried to pick guests that would resonate with and challenge us and our fellow seekers here in the desert.
We believe that a key to the journey is to keep asking good questions, and we believe that all stories are sacred.
Our hope is that you will find life and healing for your body and mind, and that you will be able to be where you are and be who you are.
And now, here is our show. Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary podcast. I'm Laura Forehand. I'm here with Carl Forehand, and we have a brand new guest, someone we just met, and I'm really excited to get to know her better and hear about her story. I'm going to kick it to you first before I introduce her. So,
Okay.
You got anything you want to tell us?
Yeah, I just want to remind people we have the Unlearning Curve podcast with my son.
Promoting another podcast on
I
this
know.
podcast.
What am I
in the
thinking?
world?
And another guy that we just interviewed
Mhm.
just a few minutes ago, Stuart Deloney, is on that podcast. He has a new book coming out that you want to hear about. And just find him and find those interesting ways he's promoting it. It's pretty fun. But today we're doing something different, right?
Yeah. We're talking to Nora Bontrager. I want to make sure I get that name right. Nora Bontrager. And like I said, we just met her literally 5 minutes ago. And so I don't want to give away any of her story because I want her to be able to tell her story in her own words. But Nora, we are glad to have you with us this evening on the Desert Sanctuary. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. And just want to say that from getting to know you just a little bit, like you said, we just met. I have really appreciated hearing just a teeny tiny bit of your journey as well. I do know that like a path of growth and undoing a lot of the conditions that we've been taught is a big deal. So
Yeah.
thank you for what you're
Yes.
doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
send you some books because we wrote it all down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nora, we love stories. I like what Paul Young says, that stories are sacred.
Mhm.
And that by telling them, it's not always easy to
Mhm.
tell them, but by telling them, something happens.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
we wanted to give you a chance to tell your story in a way that suits you and to the level of your
Comfort.
comfort
Mhm.
and how much you want to say. So I'm going to give it to you, and then we'll have a lot of questions, and we'll
All
try not to
right,
interrupt
sounds
you.
good.
All right.
Perfect. I just want to mention, first of all, that the English language is not my first language. So if I stumble over my words, it's probably that's why.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah,
It's
no
perfectly
worries.
fine. Yeah.
So I was born and raised Amish, and the Amish are a they don't call themselves a cult, but I feel like there's a lot of cult-like tendencies in that kind of lifestyle. They're a very close-knit community. They actually support each other a lot in big ways. Like they're big on family, big on doing life together, big on like gardening, preparing your own food, putting food away for the winter, and like growing your own animals and meat and all the things. They do a lot of work and they're good at it. They do it well.
Mhm.
And those are the things that I still miss
Mhm.
is that like the skills that I learned and like just I feel like it's a good way of life, that piece.
Right.
I think I want to touch on why I left though, because there's some good in that, but also I would never at this point go back. I'm super glad that I left. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do.
Mhm.
Something that they're big on is clothes, being very conservative, being separate from the world, and they pride themselves in that.
Mhm.
And I think that like there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
It can be a preference. Like if you choose that, there's definitely value in that, I'm sure. But they made it out to be like they made rules out of it, made right and wrong out of it.
Mhm.
And as a little girl, I was born into that, but I had a personality that was bubbly.
Mhm.
Like right now you might not see that because
Mhm.
I feel like that's been squashed a lot.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know it was.
Mhm.
I I was the one that would always try new things. I wanted to like I did it without thinking and I said the things that I thought and didn't think about, like I mean, little kids are just gonna do that.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I was kind of outgoing. I was bubbly. I was happy. I was just me.
Mhm.
And I remember as a 5-year-old, we moved into a very old farmhouse. And it was, I would say, creepy. Definitely some weird things going on in that house.
Mhm.
And the whole vibe of where I lived was scary.
Mhm.
And even like I've had a little bit of conversations with my parents about it. And even my dad has mentioned that he was scared at times of things that we'd hear in the house. And
Mhm.
I don't know that that's necessarily because, Amish, but that's what I moved into. That's a part
Mhm.
of, I feel like part of what kind of made me withdraw and like go inside of myself and kind of shut down. Um, but as I grew older, I would ask questions. I would try new things. So they had like rules around clothes. We made our own clothes,
Mhm.
sewed all of them. And I would say I was probably 10 or 11 when I first started sewing my own clothes. And so we had rules around what color we could wear and what kind of fabric we could use and like how our dresses were made. And some of them, like certain added frills or whatever, would be fancy. And we were not allowed to do that. So, just taking a step back, I was raised in a little, it's almost like a box inside of a box. So the Amish community it's quite big here. I still live real close to, like,
Mhm.
I live on the outskirts of this community here.
Mhm.
So the community, the Amish community in itself is big. It's a really big community. But then I was raised in, so they're divided in districts. And I was raised in, there was like 3 districts that were super, super strict. And I was raised in one of those.
Mhm.
The strictest of the 3 strict.
Wow.
And so I was kind of boxed off from even the Amish.
Mhm.
So, like cut off from the bigger Amish community. And so I was just super strict. And so I would see other people try things that I was never allowed to do.
Mhm.
But me being me, I wanted to try things. So I never, like looking back, I would never say I did it out of spite, out of
Right.
rebellion.
Mhm.
I was just genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Curious, yeah.
And so being that kind of person in a very, very strict setting doesn't work.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's very constricting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I became the one, I had 4 siblings. I have one older brother, he's the oldest, and then 3 sisters. I'm the second to the youngest. And I would say my 3 older siblings were very, what's the word, compliant to the rules.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They followed the rules, just did as they were told mostly. And
Mhm.
I came along and I was like, I mean, I want to try things.
Mhm.
I want some new things. And I got the brunt of
Mhm.
like the punishments that happen because of that, or the anger, the frustration from my dad mostly. And then my dad came to the point where I guess I've never heard him say this, but I imagine
Mhm.
that's what happened is that he felt out of control with me. Felt like he didn't
Yeah.
know what to do with me, like
Mhm.
how to keep me in line.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that
And
scared him.
so,
That scared him, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
And I actually think that I was a lot like him.
Mm.
He was very similar as a kid,
Okay.
Mhm.
from what I know. Like very, yeah, I would say the energy was a lot the same.
Mm.
And which probably didn't help any
Mhm.
because it's like he saw himself in me. And it's like, I mean, sometimes looking at yourself is hard,
Yeah.
Yeah,
or seeing a mirror of yourself is
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so, what he would do is, I would say it started when I was probably, I guess I don't know how old I was when he would go to the ministers, to the bishop.
Mm.
And my bishop was very abusive,
Mhm.
very controlling, incredibly controlling. And so he would go for backup to the bishop and the deacon and the ministers and tell them things that I did and what to do.
Mm.
And they would tell him how to punish me. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of me up against these
Men.
bullies, these
Yeah.
men.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And my dad was never like, he was never as strong of a bully as these other men were,
Mm.
Mhm.
which is probably why he felt like he needed them.
Mm.
Mhm.
My dad would get angry and just, I guess, yeah, yell at me, and which isn't like, I'm not the only kid that experienced that,
Mhm.
but I experienced it more than my siblings did. Like, I don't remember him yelling at my siblings. I
Mm.
don't know why, but except that I tried new things.
Mhm.
What happened was my three older siblings followed the rules. They did what they were told, and they were the good kids. And then I came along, tried new things. It's kind of like paved the path
Mhm.
for my younger sister.
Yeah.
And so she would do the same things, and it was fine. Um, so, and it's still that way, still that
Mm.
way. It's crazy how it just like it's kind of continued into our adult
Mhm.
lives.
Mhm.
But back when I was, okay, so we go to eighth grade, or we did, I did. The Amish go until eighth grade in
Mhm.
school, and then they're done. There's no high school, there's no college or anything.
Mhm.
And so I had a gap year where I was out of school and but not yet old enough to be a part of the youth. So when you're 16, they can join the youth.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the youth, it's just like the way that a lot of the Amish do partying, but I wasn't allowed to do that. I would have been kicked out of the house if I would have done that.
Mhm.
But a lot of our youth activities were, um, we would sing Sunday nights.
Mhm.
Every Sunday night we call them singings.
Mhm.
And then, so I had, and then just other like get-togethers that we'd do, just get together to, um, have fun, I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm.
Um, but I had that gap year of I was out of school. I was not yet with the youth. I was not connected to anything. Um, well, taking a step back, when I was in school, I would go to school and I would be myself. I was able to be myself. I wasn't controlled at school. I had a good school experience.
Mhm.
I was pretty well liked at school and no bullying. A lot of the Amish have bullying. They deal with that.
Mhm.
But for some reason my school didn't have much of that at the time. But then I would come
Can I
home.
ask why do you think that is? Why do you think there's a lot of bullying? You think
That's
it
a good
comes
question.
from, you said your dad's experience growing up was probably a lot like yours, And so then he gets justification for that by going to the bishop, right? Like a lot of
Hmm.
people do to God. Don't blame me, it's God, right?
Hmm.
Um, so was there a reason for that bullying? Is it just that it's the only
I
way? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I guess I that's a very interesting question. I don't know that I've been asked that before, so I'm gonna go off of what I think.
Okay.
I think so there's a lot of different levels of we would call people that were allowed to have more things or dress more liberal, we would call them fancy.
Yeah, I've heard that
And
word
so
before. Yeah.
so the fancy people, they were allowed more things. It's almost like there were levels of popularity based on how liberal you were, how fancy you were allowed to dress,
Mhm.
or things that you were allowed to have. And so when there's that comparison among
Mhm.
people, the kids, a lot of the kids felt like they were better or worse,
Mhm.
which is probably, I feel like it's a normal thing for just it's a human thing probably, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's where that came from is like just all the rules. Some people could have things and others couldn't, and then it felt like some people were better and they had the authority to bully
Mhm.
less
Mhm.
fancy
Mhm.
people,
Mhm.
kids.
Yeah.
And the kids were at the mercy of their parents and what their parents decided, what they were allowed and what they weren't. And then the parents were at the mercy of the bishop that they were
Mhm.
living in. Yeah. So does that answer
Yeah.
your
Yeah, it does. That's
Yeah.
very good.
I'm also wondering too, because being a school teacher, I have had classrooms. In fact, last year I had a classroom where we did have a student who was a huge bully, and so much of his life was out of control that
question?
it was almost like a way for him to assert his control, like have control over something. So
Right.
like I'm like that just has me curious with the things that you've shared so far with you know if you've got parents at home that are very strict and could be considered bullies, if you will. I'm using air quotes. If that might if you feel like you were talking about your siblings and how compliant they were. I'm not saying that they went to school then and were bullies, but I can see how that could be something that happens with certain children. It's like, I'm tired of being controlled. Everything I do is controlled. I'm going to go assert my dominance over somebody else. So,
No,
but I
totally.
mean, I get what you're saying too. Like, yeah, that's too bad, really, because like you said, their their parents are the ones who decide how fancy they can be. And so
Hmm.
then it's unfortunate that then those kids take it out on other people that can't be as fancy for whatever reason. That's too bad.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with your version of it as well because there's a lot of kids that feel out of control. There's
Exactly.
there's a lot of dysfunction in a scenario, any type of family
Hmm.
where the kids don't have a say. The kids
Yeah.
can't, they don't have a voice. They don't
Hmm.
like, there's no way for them to be like, hey, I like this or I don't like that.
Hmm.
They're just shut down. And
Right.
even the fancy kids dealt with that. Like there
Hmm.
was no less of that in the fancy households than in the strict,
Mhm.
I would say, because the rules are rules,
Right.
they're just in different places.
Hmm.
And with parents that feel like they have the ability or the authority to control, kids don't thrive well in that,
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and how much of that parental control came from like the bishop, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So it really has, like you said, has layers to it. I mean, it
Yeah.
really does. It's like
Yeah,
coming from the top down, depending on how controlling the top levels were. It really
for sure.
mhm,
Yeah.
works its way
I
down.
think behind all control is some level of
Oh,
fear,
absolutely.
Hmm.
insecurity,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
all those things that all that
And
stuff
there's,
plays on itself.
yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Right. Um,
I was just gonna say there's a lot of performance that happens, like so
Mhm.
much
mhm,
performing. And then the the parents are, how would I say, based on judged on their parenting,
mhm,
judged on who they are as parents based on their kids.
Yeah.
mhm.
And so obviously they're gonna want to try to control their kids
Yep.
because we need to be good people.
Hmm.
And if I'm a bad parent, if I'm not doing my duty, my kids are bad kids, what does that mean for me? Like if it gets bad enough, it gets worse to the point where you're too far out of line with the rules and the whatever, you'll get shunned. You'll
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
kicked out. And
Mhm.
so like you said, there's so much fear, so much like expectations on everybody that functions in this dynamic. Not just the kids, not just the parents, even the bishops next to each other,
Yep. Yep.
it's a crazy
Yeah. And what I want to say to that, and not to take away from your story and your Amish experience, but it is that way in evangelical Christianity too. I
Yeah.
mean, when you were saying that, I was like feeling that in my body. Like, I
Mm,
remember being like, even though I would say my kids don't have to be perfect, my kids are kids because Carl
mhm.
started um, being a pastor when our children were like, 6 and 4 and 3 or something like that. I don't remember, but um, I remember saying one thing but feeling something else,
Yeah.
feeling like I'm not going to be accepted if my kids don't behave in a certain way. And
Yeah.
that is a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure. And as a parent, you sometimes will do things or say things that are not necessarily for, you know, the best for your children because of your fear of being ridiculed or shunned or,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
put your own word to it. But yeah, so
A couple of
and
times,
that's not to take away from your experience. I just want you to know that that is not unusual in evangelical Christianity. And I can't speak to other religions, but I mean, it may be a part of Judaism too. I don't know, and other religions out there.
you from your story, you said bad kid. We don't have bad kids, but really, you were just trying to be a
You
kid,
were just trying to be
and
yourself.
you're trying to be yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
you weren't stealing candy at the store. You weren't probably didn't get to go to the store, right? But you
True.
know, but you weren't beating people up. You weren't,
Hmm.
you didn't have evil intentions, and so
Hmm.
much of that just gets out of control. You were somewhere in your teens in the story. Can you
Yeah.
want to go
I
You
on?
were
think,
talking about your gap year, and yeah.
yeah. Oh, I had taken a step back to what
Hmm.
happened when I was school age.
Oh, right.
I so what I was saying is I went to school and I that was the place that I could be myself.
Hmm.
I could be like I could let out who I was. And luckily I had a teacher in I had her for four, 3 grades. So they have the same teacher for a
Hmm.
couple, they can have, and sometimes it switches up, but I had her for a couple years straight. And it was a godsend. She was kind of my haven. Like
Hmm.
she was just pure love,
Hmm.
which was kind of hard to find.
Hmm.
And she would just love on me. I was always super tiny, and she would pick me up and hold me,
Mm,
and just randomly, and just I could just feel
good.
like that was one place that I could feel love.
Yeah.
Mm,
And so that was like 3 years straight in
yeah,
school.
good.
But kind of around, I would say, seventh grade or something like that, seventh and eighth. I would go to school and be myself and have fun and then come home. And I started getting to the point where I couldn't speak at home. I
Mm,
would just not say anything. I could not get words out.
mm,
I would just feel like there's no space for my words.
mm,
Mhm.
It had gotten to the point where I was shut down so many times, and I didn't understand it at the time completely,
mm,
like what was happening. But I've like looking back, it makes a little bit more sense. And I've talked to my aunt. She she's single. She's always just kind of she lived close to us, and she's told me that Nora, I saw that happen.
mm,
I saw when you shut down, when you closed off, and
mm,
um my mom didn't know what to do with me. Like I would just not say anything. I just also not super helpful around the house
mm,
because I couldn't engage. I just felt like there's nothing acceptable about me.
mm,
Mhm.
And I was taken to a counselor in that phase,
mhm.
and I was taken to a man counselor, one of the Amish men in the community,
Mhm.
and it just shut me down harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's where my pain comes
Mhm,
from. You're
exactly.
taking me to the very kind of human that has created me to shut down. Like
Right.
I cannot open up to that.
Not safe.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't safe.
And he's most likely trying to manipulate you instead of hearing you. And right,
Yeah. hmm
I understand that.
I would say he's one of the more safer people in the community,
Hmm.
but I could like my nervous system could not
Right.
register that. It was a
Right.
man. It looked like a
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.
And I was like, I
In
can't.
control. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're young, your brain is not, well, even if you grow up in that type of trauma, your brain cannot decipher, if you see a man and that's been an unsafe thing all your life, and
hmm
that's where your brain's going to go. That's where your nervous system's going to go.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
danger.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of our nervous system is, it's there to protect us, whether it's a real threat or not. If our nervous system perceives it as a threat, then it's a threat,
hmm
So, yeah.
At 16, I joined the youth and was a part of that. That was the same thing as school was for me. It was my outlet. It
Okay.
was my getaway. And
Hmm.
I would come home and just shut up. And so I, at a very young age, so they have their own school teachers. And so I was 17 and I taught school at 17 and 18. It
Hmm.
was kind of also just a way to get out, way to get away. Like after I was 16, that was what I was looking for, was a way to get away.
Hmm.
Anything to get me away from home. It's why I married. It's why I did most of the things that I did.
Sure.
Um, but at 17, so they have this thing where from probably, I mean, the average is probably 17 to age 20 is when young people join church. And so I was at that age and I didn't want to. I had no reason to want to. There was nothing there for me except that I had to,
Mm.
unless I'd be kicked out. I mean, you can't be a part of it and not join church eventually and still be a part of it. They just would not allow that. If you're there, that's the thing that you're going to do.
Mhm.
So I joined church. So they have this process of that you need to go through to be able to qualify or whatever. It's, it doesn't actually mean anything usually, but so what we did was in church, the ministers, just before they preached, they would go out of the building to another space and they'd kind of, I don't know what they would do, counsel, talk about the sermon.
Mm.
And then in the meantime, the members of the church would sing songs. And so what we would have to do as young kids, if we were wanting to join church, is we would have to follow the ministers into the other house or space or room or whatever, wherever they were, like aside from the church.
Hmm.
And we had to do that for, I'm trying to remember how many times, maybe 9 times or something.
Mm.
Um, and then the 10th time would be the time that we got baptized, and then we're part of the church.
Okay.
And so for me, like usually that process is seamless. People go through that and they get baptized and they're part of the church. But not for me. I
That would be terrifying, right, to you? I
oh
mean,
God.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a group of like there's usually more than one person that's getting baptized. So you're not in there alone,
Okay.
these
Okay.
ministers. There was 3 of us for me when I went. But still, I mean, still.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know the timeline, but sometime before I got baptized, I had a thing happen at home where I there's something that went down with my dad. And I just remember losing my composure about anything. Like usually I would just stay composed and just like, and then just leave or go cry behind the house or whatever I need to do. And this one time I could not. And I remember running to my mom and just grabbing her and just sobbing in front of my dad.
Mm.
Hugging in the Amish wasn't a thing.
Okay.
And my mom wasn't available at all, like next to ever for things like that.
Mm.
But this one time I was completely desperate for
Mm.
some sort of support,
Mm.
something like, help me, mom.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And she did hold me for a little bit. I remember I mean, it didn't last that long, but then I left. I went to my room and then my mom came in. She was at a point where she saw things that were happening and she was sad about it. She felt it. She felt the pain, she all the things.
Yeah.
But she couldn't be there to support me. She was dealing with it herself. She was
Sure.
being abused the same way I was.
Mhm.
Anyway, she came in to my room and she was like, I would like for you to write it out for your dad. Just write it in a letter. Write whatever you would like to say to him.
Mm.
And I did. And it wasn't a super nasty letter, but I said things to him that I hadn't said before.
Yeah.
And it probably felt nasty to him.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so he took it to the bishop. This was the week before I was supposed to get baptized.
Mm.
And he came back home. So the Saturday before we got baptized, we were supposed to go to the bishop's house. There was the 3 of us. We went to his house, and there was like 3 ministers and a deacon. So 4, 5 uh of these men and the 3 of us. And they just go over like scripture and like they have their thing that they always go over
Uh-huh.
with the young people.
Mhm.
And then the bishop was like, okay, we're done. And the 2 of you can go, but we want, talking to me, we want you to stay. And I was like, I mean, you can't get out of that. You
Yeah.
can't. And then so I sat there with these men, and I just remember him telling me that my dad showed him the letter that I wrote, and that I, if I go home and tell him sorry for writing that letter, I can be baptized the next day.
Mm.
If not, they can't baptize me. And if you know I mean, you growing up in religion, you probably have an idea of how, like, the impact of not getting baptized is
Mhm.
being disowned,
Right.
going to hell.
Hmm.
And that's all I understood at
Hmm.
that point. I just remember him saying that, you know, he's referred to his knee, that he had his knee skinned or like scraped before, and there was like a scab.
Hmm.
And he's like, if you just let it heal, the scab goes away and it heals. And meaning my dad, things that he's done.
Mhm.
If you just like give it some time, it'll heal. And
Hmm.
I remember sitting there and I was like, okay. I couldn't say this
Mhm.
because I couldn't, like, I
Right.
didn't have space to speak.
Sure.
Right.
But I remember thinking, okay, sure, if there's time for it to heal, what if it just keeps getting scraped and
Right.
scraped and scraped? That scab cannot heal. It will
Mhm.
just get peeled
Hmm.
off again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went home and I had to apologize to my dad, and then I got baptized the next day. It was a most awful experience of knowing that everything that went down, nobody else knew except my dad and the ministers and me. It was the most meaningless thing
Mhm.
that I could have done.
Right.
Like baptism is supposed to be joyful and like a resurrection,
Hmm.
new life.
Mhm.
And it was death to me, pretty much.
Yeah.
I remember going home that day, just feeling so completely defeated and just used and overpowered.
Hmm.
Just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you're, even if, you had gone home and apologized, and let's say whatever was happening had stopped, even when scabs heal, there's still scars.
True.
Like you have to deal with that stuff. You
Yeah.
can't just go and for you, like I'm trying not to be angry for you, but for you to have to go and apologize when you didn't, and I don't know that part of your story. I'm not asking you to share that part of your story. I'm just saying if there was abuse, for you to go and have to apologize instead of having an abuser apologize to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you feel like your life was going to change or there was a resurrection experience after a baptism? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
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 You talking about like apologizing to the abuser. I didn't do that often at all. I was
Hmm.
like, but I was forced to at that time.
Yes.
But I remember one time when my dad kind of trying to think how to explain it, but I guess he said thank you to me. It's like, or kind of saw me and just was like, showed a little bit of empathy for me or whatever. And
Mhm.
when he started to say it, I felt like I felt a little bit of like, I felt a little bit cared for. But
Yeah.
then what he said was, thank you for never getting angry at me. And I was like, Dad, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had learned to not show him. I had learned to not show anything. Just so to the point where he felt like I was never angry.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
no idea. You
Yeah.
can't tell me. I don't know.
Hmm.
Unless he
Yeah.
did have an idea and that was just a way to another way of manipulating or whatever,
Yeah.
controlling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can definitely be angry and not show it.
Yeah.
You show it by shutting down. I mean, I know I've
Sure.
been guilty of that when and that comes from that's generational. So like I learned that when you're upset with somebody, you kind of freeze them out, right? You give them the silent treatment. You
Yeah.
just get really, really quiet. And I mean, I still struggle with that today because that was what was um, inadvertently taught to me
Yeah.
from my family of origin. When you get mad, you just act like that, almost like shunning, I guess. You just act like that
Hmm.
person doesn't exist. And so that is something I've had to work really, really hard on. So when just because people are quiet or don't verbally tell you, I'm pissed right now at you, doesn't mean
Hmm.
they're not angry, doesn't mean they're not dealing with some stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Usually it's like, for me, it was a survival. It's the
yeah,
only way that I could survive.
100%.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. How did you leave? Pushing forward a little bit, but
Okay.
feel free to back up like you have
Yeah.
been. That's good. Um, when did you leave? How did you leave? What
Good
happened?
question. So I was married. Like I said, I got married and I married the person that I wanted to marry. Like that was good.
Hmm.
And I started out with a good marriage, but it didn't last long.
Hmm.
And so my oldest was born real soon after, I mean, like 9 months after we got married. My
Hmm.
second son was born 11 months later,
Wow.
Mm,
and it was rough.
Yeah.
They were super, my second son was super, like he cried a lot and I didn't know what to do. And I wasn't doing too well in my health. And our marriage was in shambles. Like it
Hmm.
was just going downhill real fast.
Hmm.
mm.
We actually went to a counselor. There's a counselor in Ohio that we got to know, and we were like, and at the time, like he was on board too, my ex.
Hmm.
We're not married anymore,
Hmm.
but um, and we stayed for a week, and we had a really good session. Like it was good. It opened our eyes to, it was a Mennonite guy. So it was close enough to our way of thinking
Sort of
that
understood.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
we could
yeah.
we could receive it from him. But he gave us a new perspective on a God. Like instead of this God in the sky who's ready to whip you, punish you
Hmm.
Mm,
every time you mess up,
Hmm.
he gave us more of a picture of somebody who loves us.
Okay.
mm,
And and we were like, this is so cool. We were excited.
Hmm.
And we started exploring that, like how to connect with a loving God and
Hmm.
things like
mm.
that.
Hmm.
And so we spent the week out there and we came back and we started talking about it. We probably shouldn't have. The ministers, so we had connected with other people that had been there to this guy and kind of learning the same things. And so it turned out the ministers, like, they all came over to our house and talked to us about it and tried to convince us that it's wrong and just a whole mess. It was a nightmare. When the ministers would come to your house,
Yeah.
you'd know it's not good. It's not gonna go
Hmm.
good. It's gonna be
Right.
a long night or
Uh,
a long day. And anyway, so they told us that we can't talk to this counselor, we can't talk to anybody who's been there. And that was kind of our lifeline at that
yeah.
point. Like nobody else knew these things, and our world had been so restricted, we didn't know that there's things like this that existed that like you could, I don't know, it was just eye-opening.
Mm.
And so we were like, well, you can't really undo what you've learned, or we can't. So we found a church in an Amish church in Michigan, like 3 hours into Michigan. And we talked to them and we told them why we'd like to move and like what's going on. And they were like, well, they were kind of new to the idea about this counselor that we've gone to. It's kind of a big deal at that
Mm.
time throughout the whole community here. A lot of people had gone to him and a lot of people didn't like it. It was just
Mm.
weird. And then anyway, so they were like, we don't really know this guy, so we don't know what to tell you, like if we're okay with that or not. But we took the risk and we moved. And then a year and a half into living there, they were like, yeah, we don't like that person. We don't like
Uh,
that, what you learned there.
uh,
And
Um,
so we were kind of like, we tried. We moved
mm-hmm.
so we could find a community that could be supportive, and that wasn't working. And we were like, I guess we figured there's no community, no Amish community that would support us in our
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah.
mm,
And so we knew that pretty much our only option is to leave. We
Mm-hmm.
had not wanted to leave. I had never seen myself not be Amish.
Hello, listeners. At this point, we decided to pause and leave the rest for the next episode. You have a lot to digest in this episode, and we're just getting started. See you on the next episode of the Desert Sanctuary. Be where you are, be who you are, and be at peace.
Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.